Syphilis Miasm in the fourth house with Ketu aspect or conjunction, hormonal and planetary influences. The fourth house governs the chest, lungs, heart, emotions, psychology, water retention, and associated hormones, such as those produced by the thymus gland, medulla oblongata, pons, hypothalamus, and parts of the limbic system. When Ketu aspects or conjoins planets in the fourth house under the Syphilis Miasm, it brings about emotional suppression, psychological instability, and degeneration of physical structures, particularly affecting the lungs, chest, and emotional well-being. Ketu's influence causes reduction, detachment, and dissociation, further intensifying the destructive tendencies of the Syphilis Miasm. Sun Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Weakening of vitality in the chest and lungs. The sun governs vitality and energy, and Ketu's reducing influence causes weakness in the chest and lungs, leading to poor lung function, difficulty breathing, and issues such as chronic bronchitis or asthma. Syphilis exacerbates these conditions by causing further deterioration in lung function and loss of vitality in the chest area. Emotional and psychological decline. The sun also affects mental clarity and emotional strength. Ketu's influence reduces this energy, causing emotional detachment, depression, and lack of motivation. Syphilis drives these tendencies further, leading to emotional numbness and a lack of emotional expression. Physical manifestations, difficulty breathing, weakness in the lungs, and chronic respiratory issues. Emotional detachment and depression with reduced emotional and mental clarity. Mercury plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Nervous system weakness and communication issues. Mercury governs the nervous system and communication, and Ketu's influence leads to nerve degeneration, particularly affecting the lungs and chest muscles. This can result in difficulty communicating due to shortness of breath, chest pain, and poor lung capacity. Syphilis exacerbates these issues, causing further deterioration of the nervous system and related functions. Psychological decline and emotional suppression. Ketu's aspect on Mercury causes suppression of thought processes and psychological decline, making it difficult to communicate emotions effectively. Under syphilis, this leads to mental confusion, nervous tension, and difficulty in processing emotions. Physical manifestations. Nervous system degeneration affecting lung function, leading to breathing difficulties and chest tension. Speech difficulties due to breathlessness, combined with mental confusion and psychological strain. Saturn plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Suppression of emotional expression and mental fatigue. Saturn's restrictive nature combines with Ketu's reducing influence to cause emotional suppression, leading to feelings of mental fatigue, depression, and emotional detachment. Syphilis worsens this suppression, making the person feel emotionally drained and unable to express their feelings effectively. Chronic lung and chest issues. Saturn slows down and restricts the physical functioning of the lungs and chest, and Ketu exacerbates this by further reducing lung capacity and weakening the chest muscles. Syphilis leads to chronic lung infections, stiffness in the chest, and difficulty breathing. Physical manifestations. Chronic respiratory issues with restricted lung function and stiffness in the chest. Emotional exhaustion and mental fatigue, resulting in detachment and lack of emotional responsiveness. Moon plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Emotional numbness and detachment. The moon governs emotions and psychological well-being, and Ketu's influence causes emotional detachment, leading to numbness, depression, and an inability to process or express emotions effectively. Under the Syphilis Miasm, this manifests as emotional apathy and psychological dissociation. Fluid imbalance and water retention. The moon also governs the fluid balance in the body, particularly in the chest and lungs. Ketu's influence causes fluid depletion, leading to dryness in the lungs and difficulty with fluid regulation. Syphilis worsens this by causing further dehydration and loss of moisture in the lungs and chest area. Physical manifestations, emotional numbness, detachment and inability to process emotions, fluid imbalance in the lungs leading to dryness, breathing difficulties or chest congestion. Rahu's Ketu, opposition or conjunction, in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm, erratic emotional and psychological states. Rahu's chaotic influence combined with Ketu's reducing effect causes emotional instability and psychological tension, leading to emotional outbursts followed by periods of emotional detachment. Under syphilis, this can lead to extreme emotional swings, ranging from overwhelm to complete numbness. Fluid retention versus fluid depletion. Rahu causes fluid retention, while Ketu causes fluid depletion. This leads to an imbalance in the chest and lungs, where the person experiences swelling or congestion in the chest, alternating with periods of dryness and difficulty breathing. Physical manifestations. Emotional instability, with periods of emotional overload followed by detachment and numbness. Alternating fluid retention and depletion in the chest, leading to erratic lung function and breathing issues. These planetary influences of Ketu in the fourth house under the Syphilis Miasm lead to emotional suppression, psychological detachment and chronic respiratory issues, with Ketu driving the reduction of vitality, emotional expression and lung function. Hack Syphilis Miasm in the fourth house with Ketu aspect or conjunction, Moon, Jupiter, Mars. The fourth house governs the chest, lungs, heart, emotions, and associated hormonal functions. When Ketu aspects or conjoins planets like the Moon, Jupiter, or Mars in the fourth house under the Syphilis Miasm, it causes emotional suppression, degeneration of the lungs and chest, and psychological detachment. Ketu intensifies the tendencies of loss, depletion, and disconnection, which manifest in both the emotional and physical aspects governed by the fourth house. Moon plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Emotional numbness and detachment. The Moon governs emotions and psychological well-being, and Ketu's influence results in emotional suppression and mental detachment. Under the Syphilis Miasm, this manifests as emotional numbness, apathy, and an inability to express or connect with emotions. The individual may feel disconnected from family or home life. Fluid depletion in the lungs. The Moon also controls fluid balance, particularly in the chest and lungs. Ketu's reducing influence depletes moisture in these areas, leading to dryness in the lungs, which can cause chronic respiratory issues, such as persistent coughs or dry bronchial conditions. Physical manifestations. Emotional detachment, apathy, and difficulty in expressing or processing emotions. Dry lungs, with persistent coughs and breathing issues due to reduced fluid levels in the chest. Jupiter plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm, psychological confusion and lack of emotional growth. Jupiter typically promotes expansion and growth, especially in areas of knowledge and emotional understanding. Ketu's reducing effect on Jupiter causes psychological confusion, an inability to connect with deeper emotional wisdom, and stunted emotional growth. Syphilis amplifies these issues, leading to a loss of clarity in both emotional and intellectual areas. Lung and chest weakness. Jupiter usually supports vitality and health, but with Ketu's influence, there is deterioration in lung function and weakness in the chest muscles. This can manifest as difficulty breathing, reduced lung capacity, and general physical weakness in the chest area under syphilis. Physical manifestations. Mental confusion, loss of emotional depth, and inability to process emotions clearly. Weak lung function and chest tightness, leading to difficulty breathing and general weakness. Mars plus Ketu in the fourth house, Syphilis Miasm. Muscle atrophy in the chest. Mars governs muscular strength and physical energy, but Ketu's influence reduces Mars's effectiveness, causing muscle wasting in the chest and lungs. Under syphilis, this manifests as chronic chest tightness, difficulty in breathing and reduced lung capacity, leading to respiratory complications. Emotional outbursts followed by suppression. Mars also affects emotional expression, particularly through anger and aggression. With Ketu's reducing influence, there may be sudden emotional outbursts, followed by periods of emotional suppression or emotional numbness. The person may feel frustrated by their inability to express emotions fully. Physical manifestations. Muscle weakness in the chest, leading to breathing difficulties and tightness in the chest. erratic emotional expression, with outbursts of anger followed by emotional suppression and detachment. Moon plus Jupiter Ketu in the 4th house, Syphilis Miasm. Emotional suppression and lack of growth. The combined influence of the Moon, Jupiter and Ketu results in stunted emotional development and an inability to connect with emotional or psychological growth. The individual may experience mental confusion, emotional numbness, and lack of nurturing instincts, particularly in the context of home and family life. Ketu's influence causes emotional isolation, while syphilis drives deeper emotional and psychological decay. Weakness in the lungs and chest. The combined effects of these planets, under Ketu's reducing influence, lead to weak lung function and chronic respiratory issues. The individual may suffer from chronic chest tightness, difficulty breathing, and a reduced ability to handle physical exertion, particularly affecting the lungs and chest muscles. Physical manifestations. Emotional numbness, psychological confusion, and lack of nurturing instincts, with difficulty in forming emotional connections. Chronic respiratory issues, such as difficulty breathing, chest tightness, and weakened lung function. These planetary influences of Ketu in the 4th house under the Syphilis Miasm lead to emotional suppression, psychological confusion, and degeneration of the lungs and chest muscles, with Ketu intensifying the loss and depletion of emotional and physical vitality.